It has just absolutely blown me away every day. It is a shock at how much a boom there's been since March. When we first started seeing that things were changing, we went into super conservative lockdown mode, assuming nobody's spending any money. There's going to be a massive downturn, and we're going to see a lot of negative growth. And it's constantly shocking how much growth we've seen since mid-March.
One of the things we really think about a lot is pet parent guilt. Like, people feel really guilty leaving their dog behind while they're at work for 10 hours a day. They feel really bad when their dog eats poor quality food. They feel really bad when their dog feels sick. They feel bad when their dog can't go to the bathroom. Like, there's just all this guilt that you drive when you have a dog, right? Like, I think everyone can relate to that. And so you're looking for solutions to remove that guilt that are really seamless. And I think historically it has not been seamless to remove guilt as a pet parent, right? Like, the only person that could remove guilt for you was Petco or PetSmart. And it was like, I call it the great unbundling of the store, but it used to do pet adoption, daycare, boarding, grooming, food, treats, like everything was in this box. And like, no one wants to go to that box anymore, but they still have to. And so what you're seeing is this great unbundling, and these brands starting to come out, and people now have like a really seamless choice on how to remove the guilt associated with these core competencies.
What technology can ultimately do when we at Row look and say, hey, what are the two biggest problems in the healthcare system? The first in our mind is that patients don't control the flow of money at the point of purchase. And the second is that there's an unfortunate structural imbalance where there's too many patients and too few providers, right? We don't have enough providers given the care that patients need. And our patient population is aging, as are, frankly, our provider population. And so what we think is, when we look, like, the only way society's ever been able to do more with less, from the printing press to the iPhone, is by leveraging technology.
Maybe one other thing that I'd add is that I'm also concerned with the newfound uncertainty that needs to be priced into the ISAs, and so that might create newfound pricing pressure and drive this towards, exactly as Tess highlighted, those careers that we see to be more sure-footed, whatever the word we want to use, in terms of like having a noticeable understanding of what the band of outcomes is. And on the other hand, though, there are investors that are starved for yield right now. So if we are willing to embrace a little bit more of that uncertainty, I think a huge opportunity for the ISA community is to expand this to people who are entering some of these winner-take-all, high volatility games where there is more uncertainty, but there's also huge upside.
I would add to that and say that on the positive side, I think, again, this is a great way to really see the product become more viable and valuable as we see it scale more quickly. And with that scale, hopefully seeing awareness increasing and the product itself becoming more mainstream. The risk of doing that quickly, though, is we need to, first of all, ensure we have no bad actors, especially as more players enter the market as demand increases, and also ensure that we think through how to find the right capital sources when the space is still early.
So when we look at FICO and we look at bureaus and reporting, how do you think about, if that does become necessary but insufficient, how do you think about the unlock for making that instantaneous, making it digital, and making it more pervasive? What is your rosy vision of what happens to the end consumer and the role that unlock plays?
Yeah, totally. So I think the first place to start is just like, why does FICO exist and what does it do? And basically you're actually looking at, when you're looking at a credit score, is you're looking at the ability to try and quantify the ability of somebody to pay you back that you do not yet have a good understanding of. Because you haven't met them yet. There's a bunch of different things within there. So it is the fastest means by which you can get there. And it does a pretty good job at actually being able to understand who can repay what. The reason why FICO ultimately ends up being here to stay is because, one, it's actually relatively sufficient, despite the fact that tech really wants to move to this alternative scoring idea. But the problem is when you're trying to move to the alternative scoring idea, at least in the US, it is really difficult to do unless you're going to go all the way there like Shivani and Tala did.